Well, the reason why I think the tell is going to have such a profound effect on so many people is because when people live a life like you live, a very elevated, highly exposed to everything possible in the world life, growing up the way you did in Amarillo, riding around with your banana seat bicycle and going to the Toot and Totem and having everything look and seem to be perfect, except you didn't win Homecoming Queen.
I did not.
It's hard to believe that traumatic things happen to you because people think when you have money that you can't have sadness or trauma or difficulties or challenges. So what happened during your first session with the therapist?
Well,
And what psychedelic did you use?
and so just to go back to what we were saying about, I used MDMA. And the idea that I had seen other people in my life that had benefited from it and seen how that, I took note of that. And I saw how John had talked about, if we'd gone to dinner and someone had said, John, do you have siblings? He would say, no, I'm an only child, which is true because John lost his sister to suicide many, many years ago. And then one night after John had had his experience, we went to dinner. Someone said, John, do you have any siblings? And he said, no, he said, no, I'm sorry, I had a sister and she committed suicide. So the party line had changed. And I saw how he had changed. And I thought, well, I want that. I need that honesty. And that is why I decided, I think that there were so many reasons why I decided to do what I did at that moment in time. And I think that was, whether you believe in the divine, God, how it all comes together, I don't know. But in this moment for me, it was the idea that I could no longer live with this secret. It was eating me up inside. It was killing me. And so,
but you didn't know what you had the secret. At the time, you didn't know you had the secret.
I didn't know.
You just knew it was something.
I didn't know the secret, but I did tell the practitioner that I knew I needed to really explore my childhood and sexual trauma.
You knew that.
I knew that, but I actually did not know what the trauma was. So when I went in to have the psychedelic assisted therapy session with a practitioner, there were so many reasons that set the stage. And I think it's so important for everyone to know this, that one, I had John. I had this incredibly loving, supportive relationship that I'd had for a long time. So there was safety there.
John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was, this is really important. I think it's incredibly important to talk about the idea that my daughters were of the ages that I was when all the trauma happened to me. So that was happening at the same time. And then I also felt incredibly safe with the practitioner that I was working with. And so the setup was such that I was ready to go in and to give myself permission to take that pill. So it was more that going in to take the pill for me as someone who doesn't drink, who had never seen illicit drugs, to take that pill and allow myself to have the compassion for myself to explore things that I could not talk about on this earth.
So what did you see in that session? We want to know what happens when you take the pill.
I know.
Explain it to us. Are you lying down? Are you sitting up? Or is somebody talking to you? We don't know what happens. What happens?
I was lying down on a couch.
Yeah.
There was this beautiful flamenco music playing in the background. I put the eye shades on and I surrendered.
And the therapist is guiding you through it.
The therapist doesn't say one word.
Oh, the therapist doesn't say one word.
She didn't say a word, but
Okay.
I could feel the connection with her. And I could feel that the connection with her was so strong, and the connection with John was so strong, and the connection with
But John wasn't there.
John was not there. But
Okay.
all the people in my life, I feel like all roads led to this moment.
Okay. So
I took the pill.
you took the pill.
And in 5 minutes, I turned to the practitioner and I said, why is he here? Why is my teacher here? And then I said, I'm going to tell you everything. And that was it. That was the moment.
So did you start talking and telling what you were seeing?
For 8 hours.
For 8 hours?
For 8 hours. I just said it. I told her every single scenario, every single instance of the abuse, one after the other. It was linear. It was if I'm looking at this coffee cup, I would be able to tell you in 20 years exactly what the swirl of my coffee milk looked like. It was reliving the experiences as I had them, but I was reliving the experiences in a way as such that I had so much compassion for myself. And I think it's so important to also say that I am not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I have no medical background, but I am a one of one. And I could tell this story 1,000 times over, and I remember it exactly as it happened. And I'm so grateful for that.
It was like you were put back in the room, in the space with the teacher. Now, so when I was reading that, it sounded terrifying because there was so much violence involved. I mean, literally him putting your head in the toilet, literally him, doing all kinds of horrible things to you, including, his foot on your back at one time. How were you able to process this? You're lying there on the sofa with your eyes covered and you're telling this story. Does it feel like you're back in the space? Does it feel like you're in danger? Or does it feel like you're the observer of this thing?
Well, the first time that I had a session, I was the observer. And I did not feel like I was in any danger because I already knew. I knew this. I was watching it. Mm-hmm. Instead, I had complete compassion for myself, complete love for that little girl that experienced it. It was like two sides of me met. That 12-year-old side of me met mm-hmm. the Amy in her 40s. Mm-hmm. And it was as if we embraced. And no longer did I have to keep the secret. And it was also in that session that I realized that in many ways, and this is the real crux of all of it, that the secret is the hardest part. The secrets you're told to keep, they're not yours.
Yeah. So you have since talked to trauma therapists who explained to you why you would block this from your memory. And what did they tell you?
Well, I think that that's also a part of the journey. And that's a lot of the writing too, in that along with the idea that I was pursuing this criminal investigation, I'm also pursuing this understanding of how could these memories be there and me not know about them. So I wanted to also perfect that.
Yeah.
I wanted to have perfect answers. I wanted to have a perfect outcome. And so I did.
But everything that's ever happened to us is in here. Everything that's ever happened, we don't remember all the little day-to-day things that happen. So what did she say?
Over time, and I know that the subject of memory is always changing, but what I know in my memory is that, there is storage and recall. And so all I can say to myself is, I stored this memory, and then I could only recall it once I was in the setting in a place when it was time that my body was safe enough. There were 10 years where I really couldn't listen to myself. And I think it was as another form of the running. 4 kids, big life. For me, I was surviving. And that was looking perfect to the outside world.